Yes, thank you so much, Birel. Thank you, KOT, Afrocentric, and all the people of God doing great work. Because when you're committed to social justice, to the rule of law, to human dignity, you are doing divine work. Once again, I pay tribute to those who have lost and commiserate with their families. And I salute you all in this forum. I've been listening to uh, submissions by lawyers or attorneys keenly throughout the day, or was it later in the evening? Um, I've got a couple of things to share with you. That there's a distinction between lawfare and a revolution, and the two, like water and oil, do not mix, because law by its very nature, not just in Kenya, across the world in so many jurisdictions, law is inherently conservative. It's very conservative because law is very strategic when it comes to property rights. It's very strategic when it comes to the ruling elite, the ruling class being hell-bent to perpetrate illegalities and atrocities. The first casualty is usually the law. Lawfare, whereby you want to deploy the law to correct bad manners in a particular polity, presupposes that the state actors make mistakes, or they think that they're acting within the purview of the law, only to be told, no, you haven't. You have contravened the law. And once the courts pronounce themselves, they abide by the rulings by the court. We don't have this kind of people in Kenya. We have a rogue political elite. And therefore, it's very problematic to incessantly invoke the law, because they know clearly when they want to engage in untoward behavior, the first institution to capture is the judiciary. So much so that if you look back into history, imperialism manifesting itself through atrocious systems such as apartheid, colonialism, single party autocracy, and even military oligarchies across Africa, they were buttressed by the law. Apartheid was legal. There were provisions in the law that gave legal imprimatur to apartheid practices, in as much as they were immoral, in as much as they went counter to human dignity, especially the dignity of black people. And you can say the same about colonialism in Africa and elsewhere, that it happened. You can say the same again in autocracies. In Uganda, Idi Amin, much as he was perpetrating atrocities against Ugandans, he had a chief justice. There were courts in Uganda. It's only when a chief justice at some point did not play ball that he took him out. We have that sordid history in Kenya as well. I'll remind you, the land grabs we're talking about in Kenya, if you read Kenya's history, the law was integral in those land grabs that took place, in, legalizing those atrocities. The law was integral. If you go into the constitution about elections, I will tell you, at some point, Mwai Kibaki filed a petition against Daniel Moi. Was it 97 or thereabout? And you'll be curious to learn that when Kibaki went to court to challenge the election of Moi, a judge ruled that Kibaki was supposed to serve Moi the petition in person. So the question people asked, where do you get a president? How do you access a president with all the security detail? How do you access a president so that you serve him a petition in person? Instead of you can file this petition through the newspapers, whatever. No, a judge ruled that Kibaki's petition was flawed because he had not served Moi the petition in person. On a technicality, he lost. Why? Because the law is conservative. It protects power. Since the advent of multi-party democracy in Africa over 30 years ago, Kenya 2017 and Malawi 2019, the only countries in which elections were annulled in a continent of how many countries? 55 or thereabout? Can you imagine? But we have perennially fraudulent elections in Africa. People go to courts. They get almost the same verdicts. 2013, that election was at least supposed to go for a second run in Kenya. But the petitioner, Raila Odinga, lost on a technicality. Part of his evidence was not admitted, and he lost. Why? I'm citing these examples to tell you that when you're fighting against tyranny, and then you lean towards the law, ipso facto, you play into the hands of tyranny. You play into the hands of tyranny because there's nothing that a tyrant or an autocrat or a rogue political elite does not understand, does not appreciate, more than you must first and foremost capture the judiciary. You must compromise the judiciary, or at least, if you can't compromise the whole of it, have strategic people in the corridors of the judiciary to do your bidding. Why, for instance, do you get cases such as a social health insurance fund is against the law, but we're giving you 21 days to rectify? Why is it that a judge never says, okay, you're accused of stealing this and that, I'm giving you 1 week? That's to an ordinary person, to return that which you are supposed to have stolen. Otherwise, I'm going to lock you up. Ordinary Kenyans are never afforded that. But the government break the law and the judge says, no, I'm giving you 21 days to rectify. Uhuru Kenyatta had appointed chief administrative secretaries. The courts ruled the same way. That, yeah, in as much as these positions are not contemplated under the law, under the constitution, these people have already been appointed. It will be a disruption. They continue serving. What kind of a ruling is that? I mean, it's either you've broken the law or not. And if the court finds that you've broken the law, why do they give you a pass? Or why do they explain to you what you're supposed to do to cure that which is unconstitutional? Ordinary people are never afforded that latitude. Why? Because the law usually leans towards power. As simple as that. It leans towards power. It consolidates power. Power wielders use the law to cushion themselves against scrutiny. Fundamentally, I want also to remind you of, if you follow litigation in Kenya, you hear that this particular accused person, this suspect, has been arrested, he's been arraigned before a judge, and the police say, look, we haven't concluded our investigations. We are asking for 30 more days to keep this person behind bars as we conduct investigation. That is against the law, especially in jurisdictions that appreciate what the law is. In jurisdictions where the law is supreme, you are not going to arrest a person unless you have sufficient evidence to sustain a conviction. You won't. So the person may move around, may walk around, you keep them under the radar, you collect evidence. It's only when you are convinced, this is the police or the prosecution, that you have got a charge sheet against the person, then you can go to court. But you can't arrest a person and then you go before a judge and say, no, look, we're still going. No, person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. You are contravening that person's rights. But how many times do you hear that? Why do you lock up the person if you have no evidence against them? Why do you lock them up? And then when it comes to the political elite, there's something bizarre in Kenya called anticipatory bail. What the hell is that? Oh, they're looking for me. They want to arrest me. So you go to court, they give you something called anticipatory bail. I've never heard of something like that in any other jurisdiction. Never. Never. So how? Like, it's like somebody saying, this person passed close to my property and looked at, see if they want to steal. So, judge, I would like you to lock up this person. That would be bizarre. They haven't stolen anything. But why? They have not arrested you. Why do you want the court to give you something to prevent you from being arrested? But the courts issue those things. Why? Because they're conservative. The law is inherently conservative. Fellow compatriots. And it's not just in Kenya, it's across the world. And therefore, when you want to, overhaul a system, if you invoke the law, what it means is that you want to, patch up a few things here and there. You're convinced that by and large, the system works. There are just a few things and there. They could be about personalities. The person who is here and there holding this position, the cabinet, these are the wrong people. If you get a new cabinet, things will be fine. There's a problem with the president. If you get a new president, things will be fine. Now, that's the approach, that it's just a few bad apples, as it were, or the bad advisors that are misleading the president. If the president gets good advisors, things will be fine. But we realize, no, that is tantamount to band-aid. Band-aid. You covering a wound that you're supposed to clean, but then when you cover it like that, it's going to fester and turn into something. It's going to become gangrenous. So we must be careful not to be held hostage by the tyranny of the law. The tyranny of the law. That's not something liberatory. It's yet another yoke. Yoke. We have to be careful about that, in as much as we are called upon and we encourage the government and every other person to adhere to the rule of law and operate within the Constitution. Finally, about IBC, what is happening currently evokes something called a sense of deja vu. Because, again, history is very paramount, is very important. In 1997, the political elite came up with something called IPPG, Inter-Parties Parliamentary Group. And one of the tasks of that group was to come up with a credible electoral body that could act as an umpire and deliver elections that would be credible and be accepted to both the winners and the losers. So what did they do? Moi acceded to the pressure and allowed political parties to nominate people to the electoral body that was subsequently formed. Okay, that happened. 1997 elections were held. 2002 elections were held. That umbrella thing was still in place, but it was a gentleman's agreement, really. It wasn't enshrined in the law. A gentleman's agreement that it's in our best interest that we exercise trust. Being litigious in and of itself does not solve societal problems. But IPPG came to bite Kenyans in 2007. How? When the term of some commissioners to the electoral body expired close to the elections, including the chair at that time, Samuel Kibuitu, Mwai Kibaki unilaterally replaced those people. And what that did is that it robbed that body of credibility. so that in the run-up to 2007, the opposition and their supporters had lost credibility in the IEBC, which was ironic because Mwai Kibaki, who as official leader of the opposition in 1997, was party to the IPPG agreement. Moi, who was seen to be recalcitrant, honored it. Kibaki, who previously was the opposition leader, broke it. And we know what happened when that was broken. So they are at it again. This signing of this thing is an elite pact. Politicians sitting behind closed doors in a smoke-filled room and coming up with the names. You know, we want to form an IBC and stuff like that. They are not involving the people. Okay? But that's politicized. It's very politicized because now the commissioners, the loyalty is divided. Whoever suggested your name to the body, as we saw last elections, you owe your allegiance to that faction of the political elite. You no longer serve the interests of the Kenyans. Oh my. Why does history repeat itself like that in this country? Why? Yeah, because the state has decayed, because the political elite is rogue. So we have to be careful, even as these things are formed. These are not new things. We have been there before with catastrophic consequences. But the political elite in Kenya is extremely recalcitrant. It learns nothing from history. There are no consequences for not learning. So they continue doing things the bad way. As it were, they continue behaving badly. Why? Because there are no consequences. They can't be held to account, no matter how badly they behave. So they just continue behaving badly and run rings around us. And for some of us who are not privy to history, we think they're doing novel things. They are not. They are not. They're just reinventing the wheel and taking us down the dark alley again and again and again. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, fellow compatriots. Thank you, revolutionaries. Aluta continua. Viva.
Shilaho, Viva, and thank you very much. Always filled and thriving with information. Thank you very much. We'll carry on. Gloria, I'm seeing your hand, and get off the space and then rejoin again, because I can see you raising your hand, but I can't add you. So if you're trying to like rejoin, get out, totally leave the space, and then rejoin again. Ozalendo, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Kindly, you can take the mic, and then Okongo.
Okay, kwanza ningetaka kusema wale wenye wamekufa, body is just a vehicle transporting the soul. Na hao hiyo mwili bado ija transport hiyo soul, walikuwa kwa fight, so bado vita ijaisha. Ndiyo mwili zao haziko hapa, lakini spirit yao na soul bado iko, ndiyo vita iweze kuisha, kwa sababu ni 666, 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons. So 6 plus 6 plus 6 hiyo ni 18. 1 plus 8 hiyo ni 9. Tunapitia 9 months kwa tumbo ya mama ndio tuweze kutokea hapa. So wanatumia nini? Birth certificate wanatumia. Nasikia watu wanaongea mambo za nini, lakini unafaa kujua ni law gani wanatumia. Wanatumia maritime admiralty law, kwa sababu unapitia through birth na ndio unapatiwa birth certificate. Hiyo inamaanisha unapitia kwa maji, hiyo ni tumbo ya mama, na meli inapitia kwa maji na inafika kwa dock, na wewe pia utaenda kwa dock. So tunafaa ku avoid maritime admiralty law yenye wanatumia, na tuchukue universal law, na tujue meaning ya governmental ni nini. Govern ni kucontrol, mental ni your mind. So sisi wenyewe tunafaa kugovern our own mind. Hatufai kuruhusu mtu mwingine atugovern. Na tukiendelea unakuja kwa election. Election inataka elite. na au elite lazima wanataka kukupeleka kwa pole, na hiyo pole wanataka electricity, na wewe bado ni electric, na wewe bado ni magnetic, so bado wanataka kukutumia hiyo electric charge kuweza kuwa elect through election, the so-called elite. Okay.